Hello everyone, my name is Rob, welcome to Kinetic Rugby League. In this video I'm going to be giving you my Super League Round 25 tips and predictions. Now if you want to see how I got on last week, you can check the pinned comment down below, but without further ado, let's get started on the games for this week. Kicking things off, we have Wakefield Trinity versus Catalans Dragons. Starting with league position, Wakefield currently sit in 12th place on the ladder, Catalans are in 2nd place on the ladder. In terms of recent form, Wakefield have won 1 in the last 5, while the Dragons have won 3 in the last 5. There's not too much to go into here. There's a few pointers to be made. Now, Catalans are vulnerable, relatively speaking, but compared to Wakefield, who just, we know, aren't a very good team, that kind of mitigates any problems. I think Wakefield can find ways to score. They've been doing well enough the past few months, ever since they were, like, winless, to actually find ways to put points on the board. So they have been doing it from time to time. I think maybe 2 tries is about the maximum, maybe 3 at a push, but Catalans, it's a big game for them because only in terms of confidence that, you know, it's not gone great for them the last couple of weeks. So just to get a win on the board, yes, people will say it's only against Wakefield, but let's not forget this is still a Wakefield team that, one, has been finding ways to score. It's a little bit inconsistent in the way they've been doing it, but they have been doing it. And 2, it's a team that is fighting for their lives in Super League. So there's going to be a little bit extra from Wakefield. Now, you can look at Catalans and say, well, they're still fighting to get the league leaders shield. Completely understand that. But when you're a team that's safe in playoffs and already is full of confidence, you're not going to be thinking too much about the pressure. And you're not going to be focusing too much on what's at stake compared to Wakefield Trinity, who need to start winning games. Like, Castleford can keep losing, but if Wakefield keep losing, it's still not enough. So, Wakefield need to start winning games. There is the possibility something happens here because of, you know, Catalans haven't been great the last 2 weeks. Neither have Wakefield. There is a world in which something happens here, but for me, I think it'll just go back to normal. Catalans will find a bit of confidence off the back of this game. Wakefield will find ways to score, you know, a few points as they have done, inconsistently, I might add, again. So I'm going to go with Wakefield 12, Catalans 30. Next up, we have Huddersfield Giants versus Hull Kingston Rovers. Starting with league position, Huddersfield sit in 9th, Hull KR sit in 6th. In terms of form, Huddersfield have won 2 in the last 5, whilst Hull KR have won 3 in the last 5. Huddersfield were pretty impressive over the last month and a half. They got themselves on a 4-game win streak. They have only won 2 in the last 5, which isn't great. But I do feel they have enough in their squad to at least challenge. They've got great individuals, but they've just not been putting it together this season. However, I do think that they will find ways to disrupt Hull KR. They certainly can do it. They've got great individuals to do it, so it's just about putting it together as a team and being clinical when they've got the ball in attack and not allowing such a strong attacking team like Hull KR to run all over them. They've got to keep it close, stay as competitive for as long as possible, and maybe later on in the game can come back and maybe try and challenge for a win in the last 10 minutes or so. But looking at Hull Kingston Rovers, they have been exceptional the last 2 weeks. Absolutely exceptional. Are we looking at a team that is potentially bound for the grand final? I think it's still a question mark there, but it's a conversation that is legitimate. So Hull Kingston Rovers, they put up a ton of points against Leigh 2 weeks ago and had a really solid game against Catalans last week. I think Hull KR are still in the best position here. They're not perfect by any means, so even though they've had those 2 weeks where they've been exceptional, it doesn't mean that they're now void of any criticism or it means that they're going to be perfect. They are playing brilliant right now, and I think the confidence will continue. I think if they were coming up against possibly Wigan or Saints this week, that kind of level that they were at might be shunned instantly. I think Huddersfield are an easy enough team to play against at the moment to where they'll be able to continue that winning form with a fairly recognisable gap, but Huddersfield are strong enough as a team to compete in areas. But Hull KR might completely blow them out the water, like they did with Leigh 2 weeks ago. But I think compared to that, there's a relatively close game to be had, but quite a pronounced gap. Because I think there is a fair gap between these two teams. So, With that being said, I'm going to go with Huddersfield 18, Hull KR 28. Next up, we have St Helens versus Leigh Leopards. Starting with league position, Saints are in 3rd, Leigh are in 4th. Looking at a recent form, Saints have won 5 in their last 5, Leigh have only won 2 in their last 5. So, I don't know what it is with Challenge Cup winners, but this seems to happen every single year, especially when the Challenge Cup winner is doing well and is looking like a potential grand final contender, is that they just drop off after they win it. It happens all the time. I don't know what it is. I don't know why Leigh have suddenly turned into this team that they are now, but they need to turn it around. And I don't see it happening this week. I think they are a team on paper that is competitive enough to really fight this week. But against the St Helens team that I believe have won 6, maybe 7 in a row at this point, they're going to find it extremely difficult. And the way that Saints can control a game is just going to cause a lot of frustration for the Leopards. So I think there is a competitive game to be had, but I cannot see Leigh winning this one. They can keep it close at times. I think if they can stay within range at half time, it's only 40 minutes to try and keep, chipping away for a win. But Saints, for me, I feel will always be in control a little bit too much. And I don't know, there's just going to be a complete lack of confidence with the Leopards camp at the moment. Saints are going to be full of confidence with their win streak at the moment. So a relatively close game, I think, is in order. But I just because the Leopards will want to fight and because they're still strong on paper. But I cannot see Leigh winning this one unless there's maybe a few sin bins or a red card for St Helens that disrupt that. So I think it'll be a relatively normal game, but Saints are just going to be too strong. Maybe next week Leigh can start to bounce back and get on a positive run of form going into playoffs, because they'll really need that. Like, they've already won a trophy this season. Fans will be happy with that, but I think it will be a little bit disappointing, even to Leigh fans, to be good enough to win the Challenge Cup and then just fall off like this. A little bit like Huddersfield last year. I know they didn't win the Challenge Cup, but they were really strong and then just collapsed. So Leigh fans will be happy, but if it just falls apart, I think you're still going to be disappointed in that, of course. So you can find the positives and the negatives, but they need to turn it around. I don't think it's going to be this week. Saints are too strong. Maybe they'll do it next week, but I'm going to go with St Helens 26, Leigh Leopards 20. Next up, we have the Castleford Tigers versus Hull FC. Starting with league position, Castleford sit in 11th, Hull FC sit in 10th. In terms of form, Castleford have won 1 in their last 5, Hull have also won 1 in their last 5. Both of these teams are atrocious, but there is only one team here that looks like a favourite, which is Hull FC. Castleford were demolished last week. They did have to deal with some injuries throughout the game, which didn't help, of course. Hull FC, it was a comfortable win for Leeds against them last week, but Hull, there's not too much to say on this. Hull are the better team, simple as that. Castleford, on paper, their spine is brilliant. Widdop at fullback, Austin at 6, Miller at 7, McShane at 9. You are not telling me that spine on paper is not top Super League quality. It just hasn't really been playing out like that. So, of course, it's not just them. It's the whole team, and defensively, God, they were shocking last week. Hull FC, I think their chances of playoffs have gone completely. Again, mathematically, I'm not sure if it's possible, but for me, they're not competing. I think it'll just be one of those games. They'll pick up a win. It'll be comfortable. And we'll just move on to the next one. This will just be pretty much a non-game. I don't think... Castleford is still fighting to stay in the league as well, but given that Wakefield are playing a tough opponent in Catalans, I don't think there's going to be that sort of feeling for Castleford to have to win this week, because Wakefield are going to have such an easy opponent. But for me, it's just fairly easy. It's in favour of Hull FC, so I'm going to go with Castleford 12, Hull FC 28. Next up, we have Leeds Rhinos versus Wigan Warriors. Starting with league position, Leeds currently sit in 8th, Wigan sit in 1st place on the ladder. Looking at form, Leeds have won 2 in the last 5, Wigan have won 5 in the last 5. Again, this is fairly obvious for me. However, I do think Leeds, from time to time, have sparks of greatness in their team and somehow come out with really strong wins even when you don't expect it. They played Wigan in the Challenge Cup, put up a hell of a fight, and I think the week before that, they put up a hell of a fight against Wigan, beat them even with a man down, a man sent off. Leeds have these weird ups and downs. They're just a weird team. So in one world, I can see Leeds winning this one just because they'll have like a spark of greatness this week and Wigan might be a little bit off. But given that Leeds are so inconsistent, but Wigan are incredibly consistent and haven't even dropped a game in their last 5, I will kind of push that narrative to one side and say that Wigan should be comfortable here. I don't think it's going to be an astronomical scoreline, although Wigan can certainly make it happen. They could put 40, 50, 60 if they wanted to, but against this Leeds team, they're strong enough defensively, relatively speaking. I keep saying relatively speaking, but oh well. They're strong enough in defence and strong enough in attack that they can keep it somewhat competitive, but Wigan, same with Saints against Leigh, are always going to stay in control, always going to be comfortable enough. But you never know. Leeds are just weird. They might do something weird, and they might win. But I'm going to go with Leeds Rhinos 18, Wigan Warriors 30. Finally for this week, we have the Salford Red Devils versus Warrington Wolves. Starting with league position, Salford sit in 7th, Warrington sit in 5th. Looking at form, Salford have won 2 in the last 5, Warrington have also won 2 in the last 5. So for me, Salford are just really inconsistent at the moment. And they have been the last few months, I suppose. Maybe the last 2 months. But they're still within a chance of making the playoffs. They're right on the edge. So they could get there. But we'll have to see. Now, if you look at Warrington under Gary Chambers. So Powell left after a massive defeat against Wakefield. Gary Chambers took over. And it wasn't a great game against Catalans. It was 30-10, I believe. But there were some characteristics, there was some fight in the team that we hadn't seen under Darryl Powell for the last couple of weeks of his tenure. Then we went away to Leeds, put in a competitive performance, only lost by 2 points, and even fans were saying, yes, we lost, but we saw a much stronger performance. There was a lot more confidence, better in attack, looked better in defence, a lot more organised and hard-working. Then we play Hull FC. Yes, it's a worse team than Leeds, but we finally get the win. That's what we've been waiting for. We'd lost 8 games in a row in Super League and looked like we would lose to everybody. We couldn't see where the next win was coming from. So even if it is just Hull FC, it was a big game to win. Simple as that. Then you come up against a worse team, and to batter Catalans by 66-12, given how things had gone for Warrington, was just unimaginable. It was just not even a thought. I predicted 28-16 last week, I think. It just wasn't going to happen. There's absolutely no way. Now that scoreline maybe you would have said was a possibility when Warrington were flying high at the top and Castleford was still near the bottom. But given how things had gone for Warrington, it just wasn't going to happen. But the way I see this going is that Warrington's attack is strong enough to find points against Salford. Salford do have a strong attack, but Warrington's defence is going to be more of a positive towards Salford because it lacks against quick teams. When Mark Sneed is linking up with Brodie Croft and linking up with Ryan Brierley, with Ackers moving quickly through the middle and getting their forward pack moving, Warrington cannot deal with fast attacks. And as long as Salford are playing quick with the ball and trying to be creative, Salford can find ways to score. But Warrington's attack looks strong enough at the moment to just edge it against Salford. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Salford 20, Warrington 24. So that is going to be it for this video. If you have any predictions for this week, let me know in the comments down below. Also, let me know how you got on last week. But thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.